Hi, it's Uni, and today we're going to be going over the different metas throughout the years. So, as of today, it's been about 6.5 years since the game launched, and we're going to be going through the different metas. So, starting in 2017, we had um, combo building, in which our limits, our options were pretty limited. Um, we only had two combo builders in the game. So we had Silver Flash, and then the other combo builder we had was Speed Force the Flash. And most often they would be paired with someone like Predator Batman, for example. So, because of his strong special 3, having the combo multiplied would result in the best damage that we had at the time. Now, later on, it would become less and less useful, but even to this day, combo building is still an important aspect of the game. Later on, in 2017, we got the Justice League team, and that very quickly became the meta. Justice League Cyborg being the backbone of the Justice League team because he gave a bonus to basic attack and swipe attacks. And this was very strong for the time. It quickly became the strongest team in the game. And on top of that, we also had the leagues and raids come out 2017. So people were using Justice League, they were using Predator Batman, building combo, and from league raids spawned the All Blades. And the All Blades was pretty good for a long time until our recent artifacts started replacing it. But for a long time, the All Blades would be super useful. It would, whenever you tagged in, it would give you 150% attack, and it would reduce your health by 20%, and for the 30 seconds, it would boost your attack. Now this could stack, meaning every time you tagged in, it would stack on itself, and we had various methods that came out of it, and even to this day, it's still pretty good for people who don't have the new artifacts yet. And it's still useful in arenas, but it's just not as good. We have artifacts that do more damage and don't have the downside of taking your health. So moving on to 2018, we got the Multiverse Armored Supergirl and the Multiverse teams, as well as Silver Banshee around Halloween. You see, Supergirl was good at the time because there was no other heroes that would be able to bypass the crit immunity on Captain Cold. And she was a staple for that team for a long time. Now she's just a budget damage dealer. But at the time, she was great. You would use a special at high combo, it would give you crit damage buff, and it would let you bypass the crit immunity. And alongside Multiverse Flash, he would build up the combo for her and give her a crit chance and damage boost as well. And for Silver Banshee, who is still a pretty decent damage dealer, she is pretty budget, but she's more useful than the Multiverse. She's withstood a long time and pretty much armor pierces on her special 3, and whenever the opponent is disabled, she'll deal extra damage to them. So she was good for a long time. People like to use her against Dr. Fate, and some strategies that were born with this were using her with the All Blades, tagging in and getting that attack boost, and then going in for a big special 3. And up until later on, she would still be good. Now in 2019, it was a really big year. We had the League of Anarchy refactor, so Heartbreaker, Harley Quinn. She got a big change with the stun, damage against stun opponents. And then, most importantly, was the EPI change. And this would give her a dot for the League of Anarchy's basic attacks based on their damage. As well as the healing was pretty good. And then Joker, people use Joker for longer than Harley because for a while people thought that Joker was better because at the time we only had League raids and people would use him on Grodd or P1 and use the damage bonus that you get from his first passive as well as the damage, the dot damage. People used him for a long time until they started realizing that Heartbreaker's much better, particularly in solo raids, but at the time we didn't have any solo raids. After that, we had also the Batman Ninja refactor, and people like to use Catwoman because she would have the Immortal, and on her special 3 you would already get the lethal chance. We had the special 2, which the dot would stack up the lethal damage bonus that you get from Batman Ninja Robin. And for this team, Batman Ninja Robin was the backbone because although he did, give you combo and all that, he also gave you lethal damage, and that stacks up to 34. Now this would be super huge for the Batman Ninja team later on. At the current time, Batman Ninja got nerfed. While they're still really good, they're just not as good as they once were. After that, we had Black Manta release, and he was really big. People really like to use him against Horrific Scarecrow, the boss in League raids, because you could have him stay in the fight for a long time and deal a lot of damage. He would stack damage with his basics and swipes, and it would go up to a lot of damage, It was better obviously if you had it maxed out, but he did a lot of damage, and even though he's not as good as he used to be, he's still pretty good. Not in the top 6 teams anymore, unfortunately, but he still could be used for a support for Beast Boy. And a budget damage dealer, pretty good for League invasions as well. After that, we had Brainiac release. And Brainiac would go really good with Black Manta, giving him a damage bonus and health and lethal. And that would stack onto his crit damage, and it would be really strong. Now, for Brainiac, he's still pretty important for mostly pay to win nowadays, but he can still be pretty useful for free to plays as well. He's good in arena and league invasions. And then moving on to 2020, this is when we got our first solo raid. Now, we got the Dawn of Apocalypse event, which would, at the time, give us some new artifacts and a way to get more resources. And one of the artifacts that came from this was the Father Box. Now, people like to use the father box a lot on some characters because it would give you a infinite combo. For example, Dr. Fate, Silver Dr. Fate, and Batman Ninja Gorilla Grodd, it would give you an infinite combo. And people like to use this a lot because it would allow you to tag in and out smoother, and it would make you pretty much invulnerable to taking damage, essentially. Now, with the Dawn of Apocalypse releasing, this meant that we now need to build 6 teams in order to get the most rewards, and that's when we started building a variety of heroes rather than in league raids when we really only needed 3 teams. So after that, at the end of the game, or end of the year in 2020, we had Rise of Krypton solo raid. And this solo raid changed the game forever. Now, the artifacts that spawned from this, being the free one, wasn't that good. You know, Kryptonite Spear was the free artifact. It would be good. It would, you know, bypass block and heal, give you some more damage for combo. But what changed the game forever is the Beta Club releasing. And the Beta Club would give you a dot damage based on the damage of your swipe attack. And this would stack with everything else, crit, lethal, and then the damage boost that your character had. So it's still one of the best artifacts in the game, the best artifact for pay to win. And it's still used today in its top 6 teams. After that, in 2021, this was another really big year. We got Raven in March. And Raven would give you damage against opponent and stack up to 5 times. This was massive. For King of Atlantis Aquaman, using a Beta Club would basically result in, you know, you could one-shot pretty much any boss in the game. It would be super OP. People love to do this with Beta Club because it would stack a lot of damage, and even without it, you know, we still had the All Blades, and that would deal a lot of damage as well. People like to use her a lot with King, and she became pretty good even for free to plays. You don't even need her gears to really make her work. After this, we also got the artifacts for her solo raid. And some of these were pretty garbage, but some of the better ones that we got were the Sword of Sin and the Sword of Salvation. Now, the Sword of Salvation is still used very often nowadays. A swipe would give you a chance to steal power bars and keep them for yourself, and you'd also get damage against the opponent based on their power bars. And this is super good for power generation. Used a lot for some teams such as Mr. Freeze, getting power bars for Silver Banshee, and it has a few other niche uses, but it was pretty good for power generation, very good at the time. After that, we got Deathstroke. Now, Deathstroke would give you a percentage health damage reduction on his special 2. And this was really good because at the time, this was our first percentage health damage dealer. And, well, after King of Atlantis Aquaman, he would be our first dedicated percentage health damage dealer. And as time went on, he only got stronger. And he's still used today, even though his only good thing for damage is his health reduction. We got the artifacts for his solar raid as well, and most of them were not very good, but we got the God Killer, and this would never really have a use until later, but it was still an okay artifact. You know, it had use, not as much as the other artifacts, but until a certain character came out, it would be pretty much unused. Now, after that, we received the Batman Who Laughs. And the Batman Who Laughs would have a percentage health damage on his combos. I'm trying to find it. On his combos, every 4th successful swipe or basic attack. And this was okay for pay to win, or for free to play, but for pay to win, it was absolutely busted, because at the time, the Beta Club dot damage would stack with the damage you dealt with percentage health damage. And this was super strong for a long time until it got changed and he got nerfed. The Beta Club no longer worked with that percentage health damage. Now he's just okay. Definitely not worth getting, and not in the top 6 teams. But he's an okay character for his percentage health damage still. He's not the worst character in the game, but I wouldn't go for him anymore. And after that, we got Mr. Freeze. Now, Mr. Freeze would be a long time strong, and to this day he's still in the top 6 teams. What made him so good was his first passive that gave him damage against opponents with freeze and a damage boost with every used power bar. And for a while it would just be okay for free to play. You know, it wouldn't be that good until we got another artifact to use for him for free to play, but the only use he had was pretty much for pay to win, and they would put a Beta Club on him and deal a lot of damage, and to this day he's still very good with the Beta Club. After that, we got, with his solar raid, we got the Nora's Snow Globe. And on the surface, it seems like just an okay artifact, except for the fact that when you get an ice clone with it, it would work with Deathstroke, and you would get a percentage health damage for the clone as well. So for Deathstroke clones and King of Atlantis clones, they would deal percentage health damage with their clones and deal more than their maximum characters. And this is still used pretty often today as well. Very good for very large health bosses. And yeah, that was a pretty good year. Pretty good stuff for that year. Now, moving on to 2022, we got a lot of good things. One of the most notable is Batwoman Drowned. And she is one of the best characters in the game, the second best, due to her damage, or her dot has her dot damage when you fully get all of her crisis energy meter full. She would put a hazard down screen wide and deal dot damage based on her attack. And this would be super good for solo raids and league raids. We would also start using her with the God Killer, because it would allow you to pretty much infinite combo the opponent in the corner and build up the crisis energy without you getting hit. It would also reduce their damage and give her a little bit of a damage bonus as well. So just in case you did mess up or something like that, you wouldn't be killed as easy. Now after that, we got Zatanna. And Zatanna is still a very, very strong character. Most notably, she would have the damage reduction for her specials against burning opponents, but then she would also give a 20%, 25% damage bonus for every stolen power bar. And this is huge, particularly for League of Anarchy. It would be very strong. With her release, we also got the Zatanna Puppet. Now the Zatanna Puppet would be super good on Zatanna, but she would also make others much better. We had Mr. Freeze, who would start using the puppet, and he became very strong for free-to-plays because you could use the special 2 with no power cost, and it would deal a lot of damage. We also had other characters come out in the future, such as Beast Boy and Robin King, who would use this artifact a lot more, and it would be very strong. And after that, we got Rise of Krypton, Ruler of Kahndaq, Black Adam. And he was pretty much on par with Deathstroke. He would do the same thing as him, pretty much just have the health health percent reduction, and he would get like a damage bonus, but it's just not strong enough for him to be a main damage dealer. Where he really shines is just putting him in some team with a third slot and just dealing a bunch of percentage health damage really quick, and then getting on with your main damage. With him, we also got some great artifacts. The free artifact being Crown of Kahndaq, and this was real good for the time. This would ultimately replace the All Blades completely, and we would pretty much never have a use for the All Blades again, essentially. It isn't as used as it used to be, but it's still a very good and strong artifact if you don't have others for now. I also forgot to mention, when the Batman Who Laughs came out, we got the Dark Metal cards. And the Dark Metal cards is one of the top 3 artifacts in the game, because it would allow you to bypass critical immunity, let you bypass the crit damage cap, and it would give you guaranteed crits if you stood in the hazard. And this is super good for characters like League of Anarchy, and using it as a support for others like Raiden, Batman Who Drowned, and pretty much any other character, because it's very versatile. Every character could use that artifact, and they would do pretty good with it. After that, we got Robin King, and this would make Batwoman the Drowned even stronger, because he would allow you to not worry about the dark metal cards with the Batwoman who drowned, and he would give you crit damage and crit chance whenever you use basics, as well as giving you a percentage health damage on special 3 reduction. After that, in 2023, we got some good things and some really good things. So firstly, we got John Constantine. And John Constantine is just okay. He's okay. He deals damage the more damage the closer the opponent is to dying. It's just not enough damage. He's good for cleanup fights, but other than that, he just doesn't do a whole lot of damage. With his solo raid, we would also get the Twin Blade, and the Twin Blade would be very, very useful. You could use it on Mr. Freeze for free to play. If you wanted, it would become very good for Black Manta, King of Atlantis Aquaman, League of Anarchy, and characters in the future. But it became one of the top 3 artifacts in the game, or at least top 5. After that, we got Girl of Steel Supergirl, and she is pretty good. She basically stacks up her solar energy and gives your teammates a damage bonus. You just get solar energy for using specials. It's good. It's about as strong as Zatanna if she didn't have health damage reduction or health percent reduction. But she's pretty budget, pretty easy to get and max out. So, overall, she's a good character. Also, her design's really cool, so I liked her a lot. After that, we got the Scarab's Chosen Blue Beetle, and he was not very good. For him to work, he would have to use his special 3, and that would push him away from the opponent. He would be pretty good in League invasions, but for a solo and League damage dealer, he would just not do as good. You know, he got damage buff and then fast attack chance, and he just doesn't do enough damage is the problem. He's about on par with Black Manta, and his damage buff is more inconvenient, so he became just an okay character. Okay, but usable. As well as we got the Mortal Kombat refactor. This would be pretty strong as well, as we would get Raiden would get the same passive essentially as King of Atlantis Aquaman, having 600% damage bonus, and unlike King, he would keep this damage bonus by power draining the opponent and keeping them at low power bars in order to keep his damage bonus up. Now, he would go very good with the release of Scorpion, and would eventually create a 2 billion damage team. Mostly Scorpion's hazard dot damage would be very strong, as well as some extra damage bonus with his ignite and his hot spots. He would be very strong on his own, not as much, but with the Mortal Kombat team, those two would be very strong. Sub-Zero also got a refactor, but it's really not worth mentioning him. He just doesn't really have anything going for him. So after that, we got the current best character in the game, Beast Boy. Now, people thought he would be bad because all we had to look at was his passives. We had Wounded, which was damage for basic swipe attacks would be increased. And we thought this would be a Black Manta support or something like that. After we saw the very short duration, there was no way it would be a basic attack support until we actually got him in the game and we used his special 3. Now this would deal insane damage because it would deal increased dot damage against wounded opponents, which he would get from just using specials. Now with the Zatanna puppet release, this would be very strong, even one-shotting bosses, and became the strongest character in the game. After this, we received Orm, and honestly, he's just kind of garbage no matter how much people try to make him good. He's just kind of bugged, and his damage is just flat damage on top of flat damage. It doesn't get increased by any damage bonus or crits. It's only increased by damage against target, so it's just not very good. But that's pretty much it. So this was the recap of all of the meta characters in the game.